All right, hello guys. Today I'm going to do a quick review of solving two-step equations and inequalities. The problems I'm going to go over are select problems from your homework assignments on Schoology. I just picked 6 problems. I'm going to go through them. You can fast forward and rewind as needed. If there's problems you don't need to see, fast forward through them, whatever you need to do. After you go through these problems, go ahead and do your review because tomorrow we will take a quiz. So if you have questions on the review, make sure you ask me so you guys can do your very best on that quiz. So to start, because we're doing two-step equations, I'm going to write my inverse operations at the top. And I have inverse of addition is subtraction, inverse of subtraction is addition, inverse of multiply is divide, and inverse of divide is multiply. Another thing I'm going to draw at the top of my paper is for multiplying. Remember, a negative and a negative is a positive, negative and a positive is a negative. You guys can use the triangle, the circle, the tic-tac-toe, whatever works best for you. I'm going to use the triangle because that's what I like to use. So the first problem, 20 equals 10x minus 15. Remember, we need to isolate our variable. So in this case, it's the x. Our first step is going to be add or subtract. In this case, we have minus 15. So the inverse of subtraction is addition. So I'm going to add 15. What I do to one side of the equation, I have to do to the other. I'm going to get 35 equals 10x. The inverse of multiply is divide. So I'm divide by 10. I'll go ahead and show my division. Some of you guys know it off the top of your head. That's fine. Some of us don't. 10 goes into 55 times. So I get 3.5 equals x, and that would be my answer. Remember, you guys can check your work. I'm not going to do it for every single problem just to save us on time, but it is definitely a helpful tool. I would suggest checking your work always. So I have 20 equals 10. Instead of x, I'm going to plug in 3.5 because that was our answer. And I'm going to get 10 multiply 3.5 is going to be, move my decimal once, I get 35. And 35 minus 15 is 20. 20 equals 20. So I know my answer is correct. That's how you check your work. Again, I'm not going to do it for every problem just to save some time. If you guys have questions, you guys can message me on Schoology or through the numbers I've provided. X divided by 6 plus 2 equals 4.5. Again, isolate your x. Inverse of addition is subtraction. When I subtract 2, remember we have to line up our decimals. So 2 is actually 2.0. And I'm going to get 2.5. And then I have x divided by 6. Inverse of divide is multiply. What I do to one side, I do to the other. So I'm going to get 36 times 5 is 12 plus 3 is 15. And I have to move that decimal once. So I get x equals 15. All right. I'm going to go ahead and draw my inverse operations again. Just real quick. Add, subtract, subtract, add, multiply, divide, divide, multiply. And then for multiplication, negative and a negative is a positive, negative and a positive is a negative, and so on. All right, inverse operations, I need to isolate the m this time. That's my variable. So I have a positive 13 over here. In order to move it to the other side, I need it to be 0. So I'm going to subtract 13. 13 minus 13 is 0. Negative 11 minus 13. This is where we struggle. You guys can use a number line to help you, or you guys can use your addition tricks. I'm going to add the opposite. So my minus, hang on, I'm going to move this up a little bit. Oops. Minus 13. So instead of subtracting 13, I'm going to add the opposite. So opposite of positive 13 becomes negative. Now when I'm adding the same sign, I'm going to add. So I'm going to get 24, and it's going to be negative. Over here, I still have negative 4m. Inverse of multiply is divide. 24 divided by 4, divided by 4 is 6. A negative and a negative is a positive 6. So I get m equals 6. All right, inequalities. We have negative 2x plus 12 is greater than or equal to 34. Remember, with inequalities, we're going to continue to use inverse operations. You're going to solve the same way, and then at the end, that's when we decide what symbol to use. So the inverse of addition is subtraction. 34 minus 12 is going to give me 22. The inverse of multiply is divide. 22 divided by 2 is going to give me 11. I'm going to write that somewhere else. 22 divided by 2 is going to give me 11. A positive and a negative is a negative. And then to figure out what symbol, if it stays the same or if it flips, I divided by a negative, which means I need to flip my symbol to go the other way. All right, last two. Here's my inverse operations. Inverse of addition is subtraction. Inverse of subtraction is addition. Inverse of multiply is divide. And inverse of divide is multiply. Oh, and then I could do my, that was a bad triangle. Negative and a negative is a positive. Positive and a negative is negative. That's for multiplying and dividing. So 15 plus x is less than 29. I'm going to isolate my x, which means I need to subtract 15. 15 minus 15 is 0. 29 minus 15 is 14. And I still have 7x. Divide by 7. 14 divided by 7 is 2. So I have x and 2. I did not divide by a negative, so my symbol is going to stay the same. Okay, last one. Inverse of subtraction is addition. All right, when I add and I have a negative and a positive, I'm actually subtracting. So I'm going to get 2. 19 is the bigger value. It's bigger than 17. So my answer is going to be negative. Over here, I still have x divided by negative 3. The inverse of divide is multiply. So I need to multiply by negative 3. 3 times 2 is 6. A negative and a negative is a positive 6. Now, because I multiplied by negative 3, that means I need to flip my symbol. So now it becomes less than or equal to 6. And that is how you solve. So again, if you have questions, contact me, but go ahead, try your review. If you have questions, let me know because your quiz is tomorrow.